So it comes to this. So they finally did it. They hired someone, a professional, a private investigator with 20 years of experience, a perfect record, and a reputation for finding dirt on anyone. They paid good money. Real money. The kind that comes in envelopes with no return address. They gave this investigator one simple job. Find out who you really are. Find the weakness. Find the scandal. Find something. Anything that explains why you make them so uncomfortable. But something went wrong, didn't it? The investigator came back 3 weeks later, and they weren't carrying a file. They were carrying confusion. They sat down at that expensive mahogany table, looked your enemies dead in the eye, and said words that changed everything. I have been doing this for 2 decades. I have exposed politicians, caught cheaters, uncovered frauds. But this one is different. What I found doesn't make sense. The room went silent. They leaned forward, desperate for the dirt they would pay for. The investigator pulled out a single piece of paper, hands slightly trembling, and said something they will never forget. The person you are investigating, they are not who you think they are. They are not even close to what you described. What I found isn't criminal. It is not scandalous. It is something else entirely. It is like looking at someone who shouldn't exist according to the rules we all follow. And that is when the fear started. Because they realized they hadn't hired someone to expose you. They had hired someone who ended up exposing them. The investigator didn't find your secrets. The investigator found your power. And worse than that, the investigator found proof that everything they had been saying about you was projection. Every accusation was confession. Every rumor they spread was actually their own hidden truth bouncing back. Let me tell you what that investigator found in your background. They started where everyone starts, with the basics. Birth records, school transcripts, employment history, social media, deep dive, standard procedure, check the criminal databases, financial records, court documents, look for patterns of deception, hidden debts, secret connections. This investigator had software that could find deleted posts from 2008, trace IP addresses, recover old text messages. But here is where it got interesting. Your paper trail wasn't dirty, it was clean. Too clean, they thought at first. Maybe you are hiding something, so they dug deeper. They talked to your old teachers, called former employers, interviewed people from your past. They were looking for the stories, the incidents, the moments where you showed your true face. They needed someone to say, "Oh yeah, I remember when they did this terrible thing," but nobody said that. Instead, they heard something else. That person, yeah, I remember them. They were different, quiet, but intense. Never caused problems, but you always felt like they saw everything. They helped me once when nobody else would. Never asked for credit, just disappeared after. Strange thing is, everyone who tried to hurt them ended up destroying themselves. Not through revenge, just through their own karma accelerating. The investigator made notes. This wasn't adding up. Usually when someone seems this clean, they are hiding something massive. So they went darker. They checked the places most people don't know exist. The deep web forums, the underground networks, the shadow databases. They ran your name through systems that aren't supposed to exist. They pulled strings called in favors, accessed records that require special clearance. What they found in those deep files made them stop breathing for a moment. Not because of what was there, but because of what wasn't. There were gaps. Not deleted information, but spaces where information should exist, but doesn't. Like reality itself had redacted parts of your story. Time periods where you should appear in systems, but don't. Moments where cameras mysteriously stopped working when you walked by. The investigator found reports, official reports with your name mentioned, but the details were bizarre. A therapist's notes that just said, "This patient sees things others don't. I am not qualified for this." A former boss's evaluation that read, "Exemplary employee." But something about them changes the entire office dynamic. Productivity up 40% when they are here. 3 people quit because they said they felt exposed. A police report where you were a witness and the officer noted, subject's testimony led to solving 5 unrelated cold cases. Cannot explain how they knew. Then came the patterns. Every person who had tried to destroy you had their life fall apart within 6 months. Not through any action you took. The investigator checked. You never retaliated, never sought revenge, never even acknowledged the attacks, but somehow every single person who came for you ended up exposing themselves. Their secrets leaked, their schemes backfired, their lies unraveled, all by themselves, like the universe had marked them for destruction the moment they marked you. The investigators started connecting dots that shouldn't connect. You were in 5 different cities during major unexplained events. Power outages that only affected specific buildings where corrupt deals were happening. Computer systems that crashed right before illegal transactions. Surveillance footage that mysteriously corrupted, except for the parts that exposed criminals. You were always somewhere nearby, but never directly involved, just present, just watching. The investigator decided to go deeper. They started interviewing people who knew you now, current associates, neighbors, anyone who might have insight. But these interviews didn't go as planned. Every person they talked to had the same strange reaction. They would start normally, then their expression would change, like they were remembering something they had forgotten. Then they would say variations of the same thing. You want to know about them. I will tell you something weird. I was going through the worst time of my life when they showed up. They didn't say much, barely spoke, actually, but they would look at me, really look at me, and suddenly I understood things about myself I had been running from for years. They never gave advice, never tried to fix me, just existed near me, and somehow that was enough. My whole life changed. I cannot explain it. Another interview. I tried to sabotage them once. I am not proud of it. I was jealous, insecure, and they made me feel small just by being authentic. So I spread rumors, tried to turn people against them. You know what they did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But within a month, every lie I told became true about me instead. I lost everything I accused them of lacking. It was like reality itself was defending them. The investigator talked to an ex who tried to destroy your reputation after the breakup. This person was shaking during the interview. I told everyone they were crazy, manipulative, dangerous. I made up stories, created fake evidence, turned their friends against them. They never fought back, never defended themselves, just walked away. But then weird things started happening. Every lie I told manifested in my life. Every person I turned against them turned against me. I am in therapy now. I cannot sleep. I see their eyes everywhere. One interview stood out. A former colleague who said they knew things that hadn't happened yet. They would make casual comments that seemed random. Then 3 months later, exactly what they described would occur. They would mention a company before it went bankrupt reference, a scandal weeks before it broke. It wasn't prophecy. It was like they could see the cracks in everything before they spread. The investigator turned to your digital presence. This is where they always find the real dirt. People can hide in person, but online everyone leaves traces. They used advanced software to scan your entire digital history. Every post, every comment, every photo, every interaction. They analyzed patterns, linguistic choices, time-stamped consistencies. They looked for contradictions, lies, masks. But your digital footprint was unlike anything they had seen. It wasn't that you were careful or calculated. It was that your online presence seemed to exist on a different frequency. Your posts would appear and disappear from feeds randomly. Some people could see them, others couldn't. The algorithm seemed confused by you, unable to categorize or predict your behavior. You would post something simple, and it would somehow trigger massive changes in people's lives. The investigator found threads where people discussed you, hundreds of posts from different people, all describing similar experiences. They commented on my photo, and suddenly I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. They liked my status, and that night I had dreams that showed me exactly what I needed to do. They shared my post, and within a week, my entire fake life collapsed, and my real life began. They tracked your digital interactions with your enemies, the ones who hired the investigator. These people had tried to cyberbully you, hack your accounts, spread your private information, but every attempt had backfired spectacularly. Not through any security measures you took. The investigator checked. You didn't have advanced protection. It was like the internet itself was protecting you. Their devices would crash, their accounts would get suspended, their own private information would accidentally get exposed. The investigator, getting desperate, hired a psychological profiler, someone who could analyze all this data and create a comprehensive personality assessment. This profiler was the best in the business used by government agencies to track dangerous individuals. They spent 2 weeks analyzing everything the investigator had gathered. Their report was supposed to reveal your weaknesses, your triggers, your breaking points. Instead, the report came back with something unprecedented. The profiler wrote, "In 30 years of practice, I have never encountered a psychological profile like this. The subject displays paradoxical traits that shouldn't coexist. They show signs of severe trauma, but no trauma responses. They exhibit patterns of someone who has experienced betrayal, abandonment, and abuse. But instead of damage, there is transformation. It is as if they metabolize pain into power." The report continued. Standard psychological rules don't apply here. They should be broken, but they are whole. They should be bitter, but they are free. They should seek revenge, but they show indifference to their enemies. This isn't forgiveness. It is something beyond that. They have transcended the need for resolution. They exist in a state of completion that makes them psychologically untouchable. The profiler noted something else disturbing. The subject appears to have developed abilities that psychology cannot explain. They show signs of enhanced perception, almost precognitive pattern recognition. They can apparently read micro-expressions and energy signatures in ways that surpass trained experts. But most unnervingly, they seem to affect probability around them. Bad actors self-distrust in their presence. Truth emerges without prompting. Reality bends to protect them. The final note from the profiler recommendation: do not engage. This individual has undergone a transformation that places them outside normal human parameters. They are not dangerous in the traditional sense. They are dangerous because they represent evolution. Anyone who targets them is essentially declaring war on forces we don't understand. The clients who hired you are in more danger from their own intentions than from any action this subject might take. The investigator, now deeply unsettled, decided to go further back. They looked into historical patterns, generational connections, family histories. Sometimes, unusual individuals come from unusual lineages. They searched birth records, genealogies, looking for explanations in bloodlines or inherited traits. What they found added another layer to the mystery. Your family history was full of gaps. Not missing information, but people who seemed to exist between documented spaces. Ancestors who appeared in town records as visitors, but influenced major events. Great-grandparents, who neighbors described as not quite fitting in with time. Stories of family members who knew things before they happened, who survived things they shouldn't have, who disappeared and reappeared without explanation. The investigator found newspaper clippings from decades past. Stories about your bloodline that reporters couldn't quite explain. Local woman predicts factory fire saves hundreds. Man walks away from fatal accident without a scratch. Witnesses claim he glowed. Child speaks unknown language, translates ancient text perfectly. Each story disconnected, but all featuring people with your last name or connected to your family tree. There were medical records that didn't make sense. Family members who recovered from terminal illnesses overnight. Brain scans showing unusual activity in regions scientists haven't mapped. Blood tests revealing markers that don't match any known genetic patterns. One doctor's note from 1987 simply read, "Patient's biology doesn't follow standard rules. Recommend no further testing. Some things shouldn't be understood." The investigator discovered that every generation of your family had someone who was watched, studied, investigated. Files from different eras, different organizations, all reaching the same conclusion. Subject demonstrates capabilities beyond current understanding. Observation terminated. No further action recommended. It was like your entire bloodline was flagged as anomalous, but protected by something that made deeper investigation impossible or dangerous. At this point, the investigator was beyond conventional methods. They consulted with people who deal in unconventional information, energy readers, frequency analysts, people who measure things science doesn't officially recognize. They didn't believe in this stuff, but they were desperate for answers. What these specialists found challenged everything. The investigator thought they knew about reality. Your energy signature didn't match normal human patterns. One specialist, sweating after just looking at your photograph, said, "This person isn't operating on the same frequency as everyone else. They are broadcasting on multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their electromagnetic field is off the charts. It is like they are a walking disruption to the matrix. Anyone who tries to harm them is basically attacking a force of nature." Another analyst who studied your voice recordings said, "The frequencies in their voice contain harmonics that shouldn't exist. There are undertones that bypass the conscious mind and speak directly to the soul. When they speak, they are not just communicating words. They are transmitting codes that activate dormant DNA, awaken sleeping consciousness, trigger evolutionary processes. This is why people change after talking to them." A specialist in biofield photography managed to capture your energy field using special equipment. The images were unprecedented. Where most people show standard aura patterns, yours looked like a storm system mixed with a galaxy. There were colors that don't exist in the normal spectrum, geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The specialist deleted the images after viewing them, saying only, "Some things aren't meant to be photographed. This person is protected by something ancient." The investigator received a final report from a quantum physicist who analyzed the probability distortions around you. The subject appears to create quantum entanglement with anyone who interacts with them. Those who approach with positive intentions experience synchronicities and breakthrough moments. Those who approach with negative intentions trigger their own collapse through quantum feedback loops. It is as if reality itself has chosen a side. The investigators started noticing something strange happening to them personally. The more they investigated you, the more their own life began changing. Old traumas started surfacing and healing. Hidden truths about their own past began emerging. They started having dreams that felt more real than waking life. Dreams where you appeared, not speaking, just observing. And in that observation, they saw themselves clearly for the first time. They tried to maintain professional distance, but it was impossible. Every piece of evidence they gathered about you reflected something back at them. Every interview they conducted revealed their own shadows. Every document they read seemed to contain messages meant specifically for them. It was like the investigation had become bi-directional. They were investigating you, but something was investigating them through the process. The investigator's own family started noticing changes. Their spouse said they seemed lighter, but more serious. Their children said they felt safer, but couldn't explain why. Colleagues mentioned that their presence had become more commanding, more authentic. The investigator realized they were being transformed just by proximity to your information. Not corrupted or influenced, but clarified, purified, evolved. They found themselves destroying evidence that could be misused against you, not because you asked or influenced them, but because they suddenly understood the implications. They saw how the information could be twisted, weaponized, used to harm someone who is essentially innocent of everything, except existing at a different frequency. The investigator was becoming a protector without choosing to be 3 months into the investigation. The private investigators sat down to write their final report. They had been paid a substantial sum to destroy you, to find the ammunition their clients needed. But what they had found instead was something that changed their entire worldview. They wrote carefully, knowing this report would alter everything to my clients. You hired me to investigate someone you claimed was dangerous, manipulative, and hiding dark secrets. I have conducted the most thorough investigation of my career, utilizing every resource, connection, and method at my disposal. What I found is not what you expected or what you paid for. The subject of this investigation is indeed dangerous, but not in any way you imagined. This person has no criminal record, no hidden scandals, no secret addictions or affairs. They have no ties to illegal organizations, no financial crimes, no history of violence or manipulation. What they have instead is something that explains your fear of them perfectly. They have clarity. They see through facades. They exist in truth, while you exist in carefully constructed lies. Your fear of them isn't based on what they might do to you. It is based on what their existence reveals about you. Every person who has tried to harm them has destroyed themselves through their own actions, not through revenge or retaliation, but through a kind of cosmic justice that activates when someone attacks truth itself. The subject doesn't need to defend themselves because reality does it for them. This is why you are scared. This is why you hired me. You wanted confirmation that they are as corrupt as you are. Instead, you have confirmed that they are everything you pretended to be, but never were. My recommendation is simple. Leave them alone. Stop watching them. Stop thinking about them. Stop trying to understand or defeat them. They are not your enemy. They are your mirror, and mirrors only show what stands before them. If you don't like what you see, The problem isn't the mirror. The more you focus on them, the more your own foundation cracks. They don't even know you hired me. They don't care, but the universe, and it has chosen its champion. This investigation is terminated. Do not contact me again. But the investigator couldn't just walk away. Something compelled them to dig into one final mystery. Who were these clients really? What kind of people would spend so much money to investigate someone who had done nothing to them? The investigator turned their skills toward those who had hired them, and what they found explained everything. The clients were a group of individuals who had all encountered you at different points in their lives. Each one had tried to use you, manipulate you, break you, or steal from you in some way. Each one had failed, not through any action you took, but through their own karma accelerating. They had formed an alliance, convinced that you must be using some kind of dark power against them. They pooled resources to hire the investigator, hoping to find evidence of what you were doing to them. Instead, the investigator discovered the truth. These people were destroying themselves. Their paranoia about you had become an obsession that was eating them alive. They spent their days watching your social media, analyzing your movements, discussing theories about your power. They had created entire mythologies about who you were and what you could do. The investigation revealed that you barely knew they existed. You had moved on from each of them without a second thought. The investigator found their group chats, their secret meetings, their elaborate plans. It was pathetic. Grown adults spending thousands of dollars and countless hours trying to understand why someone they had wronged was thriving without them. They had convinced themselves you were casting spells, using psychology, employing secret techniques. The truth was simpler and more devastating. You had just let them go, and that abandonment was driving them insane.